Hey, good morning. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, Justin.
Hi, Jen. Hi, Jim.
Good morning.
Good to be with you all this morning. Jim, thanks for being with us this morning. Jim is one of our care companions for this morning's service. Our care companions are church members trained by the ministry team to be spiritual companions and deep listeners. And so they're available after every service that we offer. So if something comes up during the service, or you're wanting to just have someone witness a question or a spiritual wrestling that you're going through, Jim is available for a one-on-one meeting right after the service in a Zoom room. We'll put that link in the order of service. We'll put that in the chat box, and you're welcome to meet with Jim if that would be good for your spirit this morning. Jim, thank you so much for being with us, and it's really good to see you and the rest of you.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, so let's get started with our service this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining us, whether you're joining us live this morning in the Zoom room or on YouTube, or you're listening later to the recording or the podcast. We're just really glad you're with us. If you're with us live, you're welcome to say hello. I see many of you doing that. Say hello in the chat box and let us know where you're joining us from. It's always wonderful to see folks from around the Twin Cities metro, but out of the state and sometimes other parts of the world and country. So welcome. Whatever you're bringing into this space this morning, we welcome and invite that. If your spirit is heavy, we have room to hold that heaviness with you. If your spirit is grieving and feeling troubled or unsettled this morning, that is welcome in this space as well. And if you are joining us with a spirit that feels full and grateful and joyful, we welcome that as well. Whatever it is you're bringing, we make space to hold that today. It is really good to be together, to remember the practices that sustain and guide us, these core practices we have as a faith community. We come together to welcome, affirm, and protect the light in each human heart, to listen deeply to where love is calling us next. And with humility, courage, and compassion, we come together and we act to create a more just world. We do all of these things as a faith community committed to dismantling white supremacy culture and building beloved community, a place where everyone can flourish and thrive, be known and welcomed and seen. This is who we are, and this is the life that we invite you into. Following our service this morning, you're invited to join us for fellowship hour. We have a breakout space for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and a breakout space for all identities. In addition to our Sunday morning worship, we gather every week on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for a 30-minute midweek service, and you're welcome to join us for that. I also want to share just a couple of reminders and updates this morning with you as we approach 1 year of doing online and virtual worship. I want to remind you that First Universalist does not have residency requirements for membership. You can live anywhere in the world and be a member of this faith community. So if you're new to the church and are interested in becoming a member, join us at our First Step class that is offered next Sunday right after the service to learn more, or be in touch with Reverend Arif Mamdani. I also want to let you know that our Newcomers Circles registration is still open. If you're newish to the church and hoping to meet others who are also newish to First Universalist and would love to come together in a circle to share about their journeys to this faith community and their spiritual journeys up to this point, you can still sign up for that. A Newcomers Circle is 4 sessions facilitated by a longtime First Universalist member, and there's a link for that in the order of service to sign up for that. And then finally, I want to give you a heads up about our Cycle of Life prayer this Sunday. As we did last week, the minister leading the prayer will turn off their camera during the time when members of the congregation share their grief, their sorrow, their joys. When all of that is being shared in the chat box, the minister leading the prayer will turn off their camera and we'll just have a video of the flaming chalice. And then once that sharing is done, the minister praying will turn their camera back on and we'll conclude the prayer. So friends, here we are together, holding a space to let life, to let love, to let spirit speak to us. Here we are holding a space to remember what is most of worth in our lives, to remember those things and those commitments and those values worthy of our deepest loyalty. Here we are together. So let's take a moment to find our shared breath, to engage in this practice we've been doing for months now, this practice of settling and taking 3 smooth, slow, deep breaths together so that we are connected by one shared breath across time and space. I invite you to join me in that practice now. We'll do one more breath together. And now grounded as one body in one shared breath, we light our chalice, led by Eleanor and Rosanna.
Please join me in the words for the lighting of our chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. I'm Lauren Wyeth, Director of Children, Youth, and Family Ministries, and today we're talking about change. Because sometimes it seems like life is mostly about adjusting to change. As soon as we think we might have it all dialed in, the world goes and changes on us again, and we have to figure it out all over. Like when I was a kid, if I didn't know how to spell something, I had to look the word up in a book called a dictionary that had all the words in it spelled correctly and organized in alphabetical order. Remember that? The trouble was you had to guess how the word was spelled to be able to find it in the dictionary to check if you had it right. And on top of that, you had to know how to alphabetize in order to find your word. But I just about had dictionaries figured out. And along came computers, which don't require you to alphabetize, but you do have to learn how to use spell check. So I quit worrying about alphabetizing and learned how to use computers and spell check. And I thought, great, now I've got spelling figured out. But no, along comes autocorrect, this funny feature where my phone thinks it knows how to spell better than I do, which usually it does, but not always. Like once I texted my teenager before bed, please lock the front and back doors. But my phone decided to correct my spelling, and the message went out, please lick the front and back doors, which is not at all the same. Anyway, I'm sure by the time I have autocorrect figured out, there'll be some new spelling tool I have to learn to use, but for now, autocorrect is keeping me on my toes. For sure, things will just keep on changing on us. That's how life is. And a really big change is coming up soon for me and my family. It looks like sometime this summer, my son Cole will be moving far away from Minnesota to go to grad school. And I think, how can that even be? I remember his first day of kindergarten so clearly. Cole had new shoes and a new haircut and a new backpack that looked way too big on his little body as we approached his kindergarten classroom that September morning. He walked so slowly, gripping my hand like a vice. And the closer we got, the more slowly he moved, like a turtle, and then like a snail. When we were about 5 feet from the door, he stopped completely. I stood there trying to think of some words to encourage him those last few feet into the classroom. And we watched several of his new classmates and their grown-ups arrive and go in. But Cole's feet were firmly planted, and I couldn't think of what to say. So we lingered there on the threshold of kindergarten for quite a few minutes. And then we noticed this other little boy lying on the grass, not too far away, with his eyes screwed shut, while his mother tried helplessly to convince him to go to school. Michael, Michael, you have to get up. You have to go in, Michael. But no matter how she pleaded, Michael didn't even open his eyes. He didn't answer her. He didn't move a bit. So Cole and I were distracted from our own struggle for a moment. We watched, and at some point I leaned over and said to Cole, I'll bet he's in your class. And then we watched some more. And then Cole slipped his hand out of mine. He crept over to where Michael was, knelt beside him, and he whispered, do you want to go in with me? And Michael's eyes popped open, and he stared into Cole's face. They were both so serious. And then Michael decided, without saying a word, he got up, and those two little boys took one another by the hand, and they went to kindergarten together. That was the start of a big adventure and a long friendship, born of mutual need and kindness and courage. Mutual need and kindness and courage. I hope our time together gives you something to hold on to as you face the changes in your life, whether you chose them or not. May you find and hold tight to what helps you adjust and survive and grow as the moment requires you to. Together, we've got this. Now let's hear Aaron Segru sing Voice Still and Small.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing through storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still we remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing, voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing, through storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still we remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
So beautiful. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Lauren. What gifts for us this morning. And I can't help but think here we are in a time and space of mutual need. We need each other, striving to live lives of kindness and courage. So as we settle ourselves for this time of prayer and meditation, I'll ask you what Cole asked Michael. Will you go in with me? If you feel comfortable doing so, let's go in together to this time of quiet, this time of prayer, this time where we are connected across time and space and location by our shared breath. So I invite you to make your body comfortable in whatever way feels right for you. For me, that's often rolling my shoulders up and dropping them down, putting my feet squarely on the floor, hands in my lap, and just taking the time for an intentional breath or two. Noticing how that breath feels coming in and how the slow exhale, letting all the air out all the way down into my belly, letting it all out, helps me to arrive right here, right now. Here we are together. From wherever we are, with all that is going on within and among and beyond us. Here we are. Whether we're physically alone or surrounded by a swirl of chaos. Here we are. Maybe knowing exactly what we're supposed to do with our lives and doing it. Maybe feeling bewildered and beyond our capacity to cope. Here we are in the midst of change, either chosen or unwanted. Here we are, for some of us, with our days feeling the same, one after another after another. Here we are, with all that is going on in our lives and our world. Here we are, trying to steady ourselves that we might live those lives of kindness and integrity and courage. In these days when there is ice beneath our feet, may we find a place of steadiness where we can hear that still small voice within, that trustworthy guide that knows where we are to go, or if we are to stay still, or to whom we need to reach our hands out to. May we trust that still small voice of love and integrity, of kindness and courage that lives in each of us. And when and if we feel safe enough, even in the midst of change, even with our feet on ice, I pray we might be able to look up, to see each other, to see the wonder of the natural world, to see the brightness of the moon shining on us, the enveloping feeling of night and day and night and day as the natural cycle that continues on without our doing continues to hold us. May the loving gaze, the comforting rhythm of nature surround us as we hold our hands out to one another, offering comfort and connection through the joys and pains of this life. So today we practice. We practice what it is to hold all of our lives together with each other, the joys and the struggles. We lift up our prayers for those who are grieving, for those who feel isolated, for those who are caring for others, often all by themselves right now. We lift up our prayers, our hopes, our love to all who are living with the impact of oppression and injustice, which is all of us. We lift up our prayers for a new way and a new world where all can thrive, where all can bring exactly who they are and be known and loved for all that they bring. And I invite you to share with us, as you are willing, as you wish, to go ahead and practice together this holding all of life together. You can type into the chat a joy or a sorrow or something you are holding on to. You can lift it up and say it out loud. You can speak it silently in your heart. Whatever way works for you, I invite you to add your prayers, your hopes and wishes, your connecting threads to this community today. And now with an intentional breath, we breathe in together and hold all of the joys and struggles, the gratitudes, the wishes we share. And as we breathe out, we feel our connection with each other. May the grip of addiction be loosened. May the weight of oppression be lightened. May grief be shared. May joy break through. And may love make every suffering bearable for us all. May it be so. Amen. And now let's join in singing as we wish with Ani and Dave Peichel, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hands, giving light the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thanks. Thank you, Ani and Dave. Thank you, Jen and Aaron and Lauren. Thank you for the words and the song, the prayer and the story. Jen, thank you especially for that prayer. I just still feel my body in this more settled, more centered, more grounded place. It's a good place to be. And I hope and trust that in our own ways, each of us are feeling that love and that care that prayer invited us into. So friends, in some religious traditions, a sacred text or a religious leader or a religious council is the final word, the final authority on religious belief or religious truth. But Unitarian Universalism offers something much different. Unitarian Universalism asks us to engage our religious roots, asks us to engage our roots in Christianity, our roots in the Jewish scriptures, in these holy texts. They are a part of our faith, but it asks us to go beyond just those stories. Unitarian Universalism recognizes there is an understanding in our faith that real religious wisdom and insight emerges from many sources, from many sacred texts and sacred scriptures. It emerges from the natural world. Wisdom and insight comes from within religious communities and from within our own hearts and lived experiences. In other words, there is a voice, still and small, inside us all that shapes our religious understanding. Listening to that voice within ourselves and when others share their insights that have come from that still small voice. That is a key part of our religious tradition and a key spiritual practice of Unitarian Universalism. So today, in this video that we're about to share, that you'll see in just a moment, we invited several congregants to share their knowing, their wisdom, their insight as they reflected on this theme of change, this theme we've been exploring in this month of January. And they've offered their insight and perspective as a gift for our collective consideration. So let's watch and listen to that video now.
My name is Frederick McDonald Dennis, and the change that I am in the midst of is learning the spiritual practice of non-attachment. I find that when I do my part and let go, I have greater serenity and peace of mind. This is allowing me to spend time with those I love and on the tasks that I am most interested in and can most change with greater clarity and presence of mind.
I'm in the midst of harnessing my courage as I continue to overhaul my life priorities as a result of the pandemic and the Minneapolis uprising. I'm learning once again that art, creativity, making something with my hands is the thread that leads me through and allows me to process, accept, and choose change. When I collected the broken window glass from the East Lake Library last May, I had a feeling it would make its way into one of my mosaics as a reminder that the broken, although difficult, can be remade. My mosaic is titled Courage Creates Change.
Hi everyone, I am Lena Gardner and this is Winifred Gardner. We just wanted to offer a reflection on change today. So as the mother of a 13-month-old, oh yeah, do you see that kitty out there? Do you see that kitty walking? As the mother of a 13-month-old, change is my constant. Change is our constant. Miss Winnie's body and mind is changing every day, and the world around us seems to be changing very quickly every day. And I like to lean into a saying from Octavia Butler that kindness eases change and love quiets fear. Both of those are sayings that I have been leaning into really deeply during this pandemic. And yeah, I just want, how do we show kindness to each other, to ourselves, and to our kids, to our loved ones, every day, every moment of every day. In some ways, these are long, long days. This winter, long days. So that's what I have to offer you today. How are we showing kindness? How are we making it so that our love quiets our fear and that our kindness eases all of our changes? Yeah. Can you blow kiss? You say bye-bye. We love you.
Such sweetness. Really grateful for the videos. Thank you, Frederick and Martha and Lena and Winnie. And I'm guessing that all of us in this space right now, and those of us listening later, all of us are in the middle of change, either a change we've chosen or a change that has chosen us. And the question I want to hold this morning together is, what can hold us? What can anchor us in the midst of change? That's the question I want to hold. And in the spirit of a mosaic, I want to offer three little pieces, three little reflections that I hope speak to this question. So here's the first piece. Many of you know that a very early morning walk is a part of my spiritual practice. Walking, journaling, and meditation are important, so important to my well-being right now. But here's the challenge I've been experiencing lately with walking, and Jen referenced this in her prayer, and many of you know this. It has been treacherously icy out there and downright dangerous for cars and bikes and pedestrians, with lots of slip sliding around, which in so many ways mirrors the slip sliding around that many of us feel in our lives as the vaccine kind of rolls out, as the virus mutates and we really wonder what is next, as school looks like it might resume, but we're not exactly sure what that means and when, as efforts for racial justice and climate change begin, but we're not sure what that really means. The road ahead is daunting. It is a slip slidey time all around. So much feels uncertain and tentative. So in the midst of all of this, walking really helps ground me. These early morning walks were going fairly well because I had a pair of yak tracks that I would put on over my shoes, and that basically secured me. But I walk a lot. And the metal coils on the bottom of the yak tracks, they broke. Many of them are broken, they've fallen off, and even the rubber webbing on the bottom of my yak tracks has busted off as well. So in short, this thing that anchored me wasn't working anymore, but I wasn't about to give up walking. So I went to the basement and I went to my toolbox and I found a real mix and match of small, random, kind of rejected screws that have just accumulated in my toolbox over the years. And I spent some time a number of days ago just screwing them into the bottom of a well-used pair of shoes, a pair of shoes that were just kind of between that place. Should I keep these, wear them a little bit longer, or give them away or throw them away, whatever it is. And I got that used pair of shoes and screwed these screws in. And as I put the last screw in, I thought to myself, this is either really brilliant or just really ridiculous. And guess what? It worked. And I'm not saying that it's brilliant, but it worked. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's all these little small screws in the bottom of my shoe that actually anchors me pretty well on the ice. I don't know if it's brilliant, but it did work. Out of this nearly forgotten collection of leftover screws, just laying there for who knows how long, I was able to create something that anchored me. And my guess is that you have a metaphorical or literal toolbox, spiritual or otherwise, or some kind of junk drawer, spiritual or otherwise, in your life that actually contains items and memories and practices and reminders that can hold and anchor you. It's not always the shiniest, newest things that can anchor us. Sometimes they're tucked away, far away, waiting for us to discover them. Story number 2. I love mosaics. And I see a comment, they're very, very short screws. So that's how that's working. And they're Hoka shoes, so it's a huge cushion. I love mosaics. And I love the mosaic that Martha created, the one we saw a picture of in that earlier video, this mosaic created from the broken glass of the East Lake Street Library. In a way, the broken windows of the library were a reflection of the brokenness of policing, of the brokenness of a system that claims to be fair but systemically oppresses Black and Indigenous, people of color, disabled, queer, immigrants, and poor folks, among others. The broken glass mirrored that larger brokenness on some level. And yet, out of that brokenness, these leftover pieces, the leftover pieces of these windows, in that, there were these seeds of renewal and possibility. They were just resting there. And Martha took what was broken to offer a personal and a collective vision of a way forward in that beautiful mosaic she created. I'm reminded of Terry Tempest Williams' book, Finding Beauty in a Broken World. In her book, Williams talks about her experience meeting and working with Lily Ye, a Chinese-American artist based in North Philadelphia. Terry Tempest Williams explains that Lily understood mosaic making as taking that which was broken and creating something whole. Perhaps some of you have heard of Lily Ye and the work that she has done and did in North Philadelphia. Terry Tempest Williams explains that Lily Ye helped create the village of arts and humanities in Philadelphia from the poorest of neighborhoods. Lily Ye stood in the center of an empty lot that was littered with glass, and she picked up a stick and she drew a circle around her in this empty lot. One by one, a curious community came to see who this tiny Chinese woman was and what she was doing writes Terry Tempest Williams. Lillier invited them to pick up shards of glass, and together they began making art. A tree of life was constructed on the standing wall of a building otherwise destroyed. It was the first of many mosaics to restore beauty to that neighborhood. And every time I think about this story, every time I read it or think about that image of mosaic making of a person just drawing a circle, and then in that circle attending to the broken pieces of glass and whatever else is there. Every time I hear this story and think of the story, I'm reminded that in the mess, in the seeming brokenness of the world or brokenness of our lives, in the uncertainty, in the change, in the wreckage, there are the seeds of something life-giving and healing and beautiful. We may not like to look there, but where we focus, where we pay attention, really matters. And sometimes looking at the brokenness can lead us to a kind of wholeness. I want to share one final story with you this morning. Some of you may have heard this story this week or read it. I've shared it several times and in several places, so I'll condense it down just a little bit. This is a story from my colleague, the Reverend Sean Parker Dennison, and they describe meeting with some of their ministerial colleagues at the beginning of the year. And the question in front of them as they gathered for this meeting was this: what word would they claim for the new year? The first colleague chose hope. The next colleague chose compassion. The third chose self-care, then peace. Someone chose devotion, then honor. So when it was their turn, Sean blurted out, my word for the year is relentless. And the room was silent and then filled with nervous laughter. Sean explained, the world seems to be getting meaner. And I guess I chose relentless because I need it. I don't want to give up on the world or on myself. The silence continued, and then one of Sean's retired colleagues smiled and asked loudly, can I borrow that? I want to change my answer from kind to relentlessly kind. One by one, Sean's colleagues agreed. And for the year, they could commit themselves to relentless hope, relentless compassion, relentless self-care, relentless peace, relentless devotion, and relentless honor. And I wonder, as you hear this story or hear this story again, in what ways it speaks to you, in what ways it resonates. Amidst all of the words that surround us right now, is there a word that calls out to you, maybe relentlessly nudges at you, calls out to you? Is there a word that speaks to you as we move into 2021? A word that you might focus your attention on, a word that might anchor you amidst the changes of this year? If so, if there's a word that resonates, I invite you to share that word in the chat box. It's fine if there's duplicates. It's fine if you've done this before. The practice here is to lift that word or identify that word and hold it in awareness, to let it be a signpost, to let it provide a roadmap to how you might move through your days. It's one piece to plug into the mosaic that can be your life, that can hold and anchor you. It's beautiful to see these words, in the chat box. It's beautiful. Maybe we can do a word cloud later and see what that looks like. But just by focusing our attention on a word, out of the many words around us, pandemic, vaccine, racial justice, uprising, uncertainty, to focus on a word, it can be a life-giving practice to let that word shape our interaction, our movement through the world, our relating to other peoples. Relentless hope, relentless healing. Finding a word can be powerful. I think about that mosaic that Martha Bird created. And I don't know if you could see it. I think you probably could. In the middle of that mosaic was the word courage, right there in the center. And what I want to remind us all of this morning is that these little objects, these words, these glass shards, these screws, and so many other things, they are all around us all of the time, offering themselves to our imagination, offering themselves as anchors, offering themselves as pieces we can put together to build a kind of wholeness. They're all around us. So friends, we are in the river of change. That's the constant, isn't it? But in that swirling, turbulent, sometimes slow and meandering current, we rest and we move and we have our being. We are in that current. But in that current and in our lives, there are countless little objects and practices and loving hands that can anchor us when it feels overwhelming, when it feels like it's too much. So check the back corners of your spiritual closets, the nooks and crannies of your spiritual toolboxes. Explore what looks broken and shattered. Flip through the pages of your spiritual dictionary and discover what treasures lie there. In the midst of chaos, in the midst of change, in the midst of laughter and tears, may all of us find and hold fast to the things that anchor us. And together, may we dream on, finding beauty and hope and possibility in a broken world. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. Just good to breathe for a moment. I noticed this morning in the paper there was an article in the Star Tribune about the impact that the pandemic was having on families and children, particularly the impact it was having on their hunger, that they were more and more families were needing to go to food shelves or food pantries to get the basic nourishment they needed. So our offering this morning is one small but very concrete way that we can help address this need. We will share our offering this morning with an organization called Every Meal. Every Meal provides nutritious, high-quality food bags to students in need. And in the last 10 years, 6 million meals have been provided to Minnesota students in over 400 locations. Every Meal's mission is to fight child hunger through community and school partnerships. Their vision is that every child has every meal they need. And there are a number of ways you can give. We're putting those in the chat box and on the screen. And before we give and receive our offering this morning, I want to say that if you are struggling emotionally or spiritually, whatever it might be, but particularly if you're struggling financially, we are here for you. There is an emergency fund in the church that is available to help with housing needs, with food needs, with medical bills, with whatever it might be that you are struggling with. There is a fund, and part of our ministry is to support one another when we are in need. So please reach out to me or any of the ministers if that is something that would be helpful in your life. And in just a moment, we will give and receive our offering for Every Meal, this very concrete thing we can do to help students in our community. And in just a moment, you will hear a brand new piece from our choir. And I'm going to keep talking for just a little bit. So if you have your phones out or you're writing a check or whatever it is, you can finish doing that, because I want you to really have your full attention on the screen and on our choir, because they have got some moves and they've got some grooves. They have been working so hard over the course of this year, not only with the singing, but the video editing and just the way these videos have come together. And so when it starts, I hope you will give it your full attention. They have put some serious time and love into this piece. It is awesome. It is radical. It is fabulous. This is Dream On by the First Universalist Choir. Check it out. Oh, goodness, yes. Oh, beloved choir, that is fabulous. I love seeing that mosaic of your faces together, your moves, your singing, your dancing. Thank you for that gift. Thank you for inviting us to dream on through the laughter and the tears, through the changes, through the hardships, to dream on, to know we are not dreaming alone. There is a community we are a part of that is dreaming with us. Thank you. Thank you for that gift. I was just kind of rocking here. If I'd have been in church, you guys would have seen me. I'm sure all of you were kind of rocking as well. What a joy. What a joy. Thank you. Beloveds, in our lives and in our community, we know we can find and create beauty in this troubled world. And we know that a better world is possible. This is why we hold fast, we get anchored, we dream on. We know that we are there for one another and for each other. And as we continue our journey in this new year, may you be blessed and may you be a blessing. May it be so. And let's listen to Nadia and Madeline sing, Go Now in Peace. You are all invited to join us following the service in fellowship hour or to meet with a care companion if that is something that your spirit needs. And now, as we extinguish the chalice, we do not extinguish the flame in our hearts. May that flame burn brightly until we are together again. As we conclude our service and I extinguish our chalice, I invite you to type in the chat, I carry the flame.